have I met you before?
We have. I think
You look familiar.
maybe Warrior.
Yes, I remember you. Yes.
Your Friends and Neighbors is a brand new series on Apple TV Plus, and we got a chance to speak to the writer, creator, showrunner, Jonathan Tropper.
I had a blast with this show, and I have many, many questions. But first of all, I love me a good monologue. Talk to me about Coop's "This Is What Happens" opening monologue, because watching it, I felt that the entire show kind of stemmed from that idea. Am I right?
Well, I really wanted to imbue this show with a very specific tone. There's a tonal flair to the show that prevents it from becoming a serious drama or a farce, right? There needs to be a kind of serio-comic tone through it, and I thought the best way to do that, and to also really remain sympathetic with Coop, with John's character, was to start the show really strongly locked into his point of view. And I'm usually not a fan of voiceover. I haven't done it in anything else before, but I love the idea that the voiceover could actually become a character in the show itself, where the voiceover is rarely explaining to you what you're seeing on the screen. It's always taking you in another direction. And so for me, in a way, it's almost like John Hamm is your drinking buddy, and he's taking you through this very bizarre experience with him.
Which is why I think the classic noir movies with the voiceovers worked as well as they did, as opposed to something like Blade Runner, where it was just explaining what was happening on screen.
Yeah, we talked a lot about film noir and the notion of like the Mike Hammer or the Philip Marlowe voiceover. That's what we wanted to channel there in a slightly more contemporary way.
Very cool. There is a real literary quality to the series. As I was watching these episodes, it felt like I was reading a novel, and I'm curious as to your process when it comes to writing something like this, which has so many layered characters and all these things going on. Do you approach it in a similar way?
Yeah, and if you look at, before I was doing TV and film, I wrote 6 novels, and this very much, you could see this very much fitting in with those novels more than the TV I've done till now. But, what it really is all plot has to come from characters. So when we sit down in the writer's room, we spend a lot of time talking about character, and only as we get into sort of the facets of each character does that start to generate plot. But we never sit there and say, now he has to do this, and then let's back into why. It always starts with, this is how he's feeling, this is what he's been through, this is what he feels, so what does that lead to? And that's where the plot comes from. So it's definitely, more than anything I've done, a very character-driven process.
Can I say, I really appreciate, you start the series and then you do a little flashback, but I really appreciate that you got back to that point quickly, as opposed to waiting until episode 9 or 10 or whatever, right? I hate it when that happens. Anyway, could you tell me, and I'm not sure because we haven't seen the whole season yet, they didn't give us the whole season, but could you tell me what Coop's fascination is with TCM and Criterion?
I lived in a community like this for 15 years. And I was a novelist while everyone else was in finance. And I was a movie fan while everyone else was into sports. And I found my inability to talk intelligently about football or have college basketball brackets or talk about any of these things really put me on the outs. I ended up very often more on the side of the table that the women were than the men, because I couldn't talk about finance and I couldn't talk about sports. And when I wrote the pilot, he was initially watching sports on television. And then I said to myself, everybody watches sports. All these guys watch sports. I want to give a little piece of myself to this character. And so I decided that it's a little unexpected that instead of being any kind of sports fan, he's really interested in both old classic movies and the 80s and 90s action movies, both of which were my favorites. So.
And it's a nice touch because it kind of feeds into everything else you've done with the voiceover and the way where the plot goes in the end. But
I love featuring movies like DOA and Detour, which would feature that kind of noir narration that he's doing 100%.
Oh, it's very cool. I'm having such a great time. Thank you so much. I'm all out of time, but it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you again.
Thank you. Nice to speak to you.
Cheers.
Take care.
Congratulations.
What'd you get up to last night?
Oh, not much.
Your Friends and Neighbors is now streaming on Apple TV Plus. Check it out. Let us know what you think. Sound off in the comments. and thank you so much for watching.